Well, hello, my YouTube family. Welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, then it's just welcome to my channel and now welcome back. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button because you will not be disappointed unless, of course, your taste level is lacking and that's something I cannot relate to, girl. I don't even know what to tell you to do. But if that is not your struggle, welcome. I hope you are well. Speaking of wellness, for those of you who are not new here and know about Blue and the situation with him, we had our last and final doctor visit today just to make sure that his incision is healing really well and that he did not need another round of antibiotics, which he doesn't. We're just going to finish the ones that we have and he'll be good to go. He was so happy in the vet's office today. Like, everybody was like, he's like a completely different dog. The first time I took him in there, y'all, I was crying. He was like laid over in my arms, like he was clinging to life with his very last breath. We were going through a lot, but today he was so happy, shaking his little groove thing all around the vet's office. Like, he loves them so much at this point. I'm like, sir, I know these are your girls or whatever, but you will not be seeing them for a while, okay? Hopefully, fingers crossed, nothing else happens. I also have good news. So I am moving. I'm in the process of moving. I literally have to be out of my apartment in a week, and I just got a place to stay literally today. I don't even know if I have a whole week left, but I am super excited about that. So I'm in a real good mood today. My baby is healthy and happy. I'm happy and healthy. Got a place to live. I hope y'all are happy and healthy and in good spirits as well. And without further ado, I'm gonna get into the case that I am here to talk about today. It is the case of David Fuller, aka the Mortuary Monster. If y'all ain't heard about this, child, you are in for a ride. This man was sick, to say the least. You might hear Bella snoring in the background. Maybe not. I don't know. I don't think the mic is gonna pick her up back there, but if you hear a little snoring in the background, girl, it's not me. I promise. It's my girl. Anytime I'm filming, she loves to come, get her little teddy bear, lay down and listen to mama talk. She uses me like live ASMR and mama goes in deep with the sleep. Okay, she is really snoring up a storm. Her snoring is literally so cute. The deranged David Fuller was born on September 4th of 1954, a Virgo. Interesting. And David is born and raised on the south coast of England, Portsmouth to be specific. Now, I cannot find anything about his childhood, and there was like this little indie app that did a documentary on him or had a documentary streaming of him, but when I tried to do the little free trial to watch it right quick, it was no longer available still, so I can't really tell you anything about how he grew up. But at the age of 19, he is arrested and ends up pleading guilty to a series of home invasions, and this happens again just 4 years later. So in short, David was just a thug child running the streets and stealing, and each time he would get caught, he manages to evade jail time. Now, later on in his 20s, he seemingly puts his thieving ways behind him and turns his attention to more positive hobbies. He even gets married. He spends all of his free time going cycling, bird watching, hiking, and even develops an interest in photography, which leads him to some pretty cool opportunities. He goes on tour with the London rock band called the Cutting Crew as their photographer in 1985, and by now he is 30 years old and on his second marriage. He is also now living in Kent with his second wife, Sally. Now, his first marriage to Jillian had ended when he found out that Miss Girl was having an affair. With Jillian, he had had 2 children and is reportedly a great father. By all accounts, David cannot be more average. At least that's how he appears, because, child, he is far from that. In 1987, 25-year-old Wendy Nail has recently settled into Kent after the end of her marriage. Wendy gets a job working as a manager at a photo store called Super Snaps and meets David when he comes into the store needing some film developed. June 22nd, she leaves work at around 5 p.m. and spends some time with her boyfriend before being dropped off at home around 11 p.m. Sometime during the night, someone breaks into her home, entering through a back window, and it is none other than Mr. David Fuller. David beats and strangles Wendy, covers her body with a duvet, and steals her key ring and her diary before fleeing the scene. Wendy is discovered the following day, and what is really sad is all of this has transpired on her father's birthday. It is also determined that Wendy had been essayed, but strangely, it appears that it had happened post-mortem. DNA is left behind by the perpetrator, but unfortunately at this time, DNA science has not progressed enough for that to matter. However, the DNA, of course, is still collected and kept on file. Unfortunately, though, there's no other evidence left behind by the perpetrator to point them in the direction of who this person was. And just a couple of months later, before they can even get this situation or this case solved, another incident very similar to this one takes place. 20-year-old Caroline Pierce works at a restaurant in Wells, Kent, not far from where Wendy lived and worked. On the late evening of November 24th, neighbors of hers report hearing screams come from the direction of her home, but unfortunately, help does not arrive in time. David manages to get her out of her home. He assaults her in the same manner that he had assaulted Wendy and dumps her in a field near a trail that he had biked with his cycling club just a couple of weeks prior. It is 3 whole weeks before she is discovered, and because of the similarities between both crime scenes, it was very obvious that the same person was behind both. Again, there is hardly any evidence aside from DNA left behind to point them in the direction of their killer, but with what little information they do have, which is both women are young and had lived alone in small apartments, which they refer to as bedsits, they decide to give the killer a nickname, the bedsit killer. Now, the killer had again left his DNA behind on the tights of the young woman, and of course there's nothing that they could really do with it besides file it away, and they are left completely baffled. For now, David has gotten away with what he has done, but as the time progresses and so does science, the walls begin to close in on little David. Now, unfortunately though, he will get away with a lot more between now and then. In 1989, just 2 years later, David secures a job working as an electrician for the Kent and Sussex Hospital. And not only is David a murderer, child, he is a cheater as well. Within a year, he has kicked off a full-on affair with one of the nurses at the hospital, Susan, who describes him as a very gentle and sweet, loving man who treats her well. But he is not the only one out here playing the field within his marriage. His wife is also cheating on him, okay? I don't know if she was cheating back or if she was just a cheater. Sally actually leaves David for her side piece, who happens to be a member of their cycling club. Just messy. A very messy situation. David was completely blindsided by the whole thing. He had no clue that his wife was just sneaking and creeping with his cycling club member, okay? He is shocked, embarrassed, bewildered, if you will, by the news. Nevertheless, though, he picks up the pieces, moves on, and marries his third wife in 1999, with whom he has another child. He had one child from his second marriage as well, so now he is the father of 4. By all accounts, he lives a pretty uneventful life. He works at the hospital for 21 years before moving on to Tunbridge Wells Hospital and joins the maintenance staff there as an electrician, working from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. Now, David's title gives him unsupervised access to all parts of the hospital, including the morgue. And what no one knows is that when the morgue staff goes home every day at around 4 p.m., David sneaks down there pretending to check on the refrigerators and the light bulbs to perform sexual acts on the fresh bodies that have just been brought in. Now, the crimes that he had committed against Wendy and Caroline were not about the killing itself. He didn't really enjoy that part. It was about necrophilia, having his way with them after the fact. That is what he enjoyed, not the act of taking their lives. Him having this job and having unlimited access to the morgue enables him to fulfill this fantasy without having to take someone's life first. He is very careful to avoid the security camera while he's down there doing it, but he uses his own camera to record himself performing the act so that he could watch them back later. David has been doing this his entire career as an electrician without anybody noticing a thing. Meanwhile, DNA technology is advancing, and detectives have not forgotten about the infamous unsolved bedsit murders. In 2007, the DNA from both women are reviewed and a DNA profile is created for the perpetrator and entered into a database. Now, this database would flag them if it matched any other criminals that are in the system. But unfortunately, it doesn't come back as a match right away. However, they do have it. So if he is arrested in the future, it would flag them, of course. Despite multiple cold case reviews and numerous appeals on TV, the bedsit murders continue to go unsolved for several more years. However, they are able to eliminate a lot of the people that they had as a suspect that they thought could have done this, and David's little DNA just lies dormant in their system without a match for several more years. Now in 2020, they finally reach a break in the case when they have a hit. It is not an exact match, but it is a partial match, and it is very close to their guy. The partial match is to a person who not only lives in the area, but happens to be a sibling of David's. On December 3rd, police arrive at the now 67-year-old David Fuller's very nice family home where he resides with his third wife and teenage son, and they arrest him on suspicion of murder. Now, they are just here for Caroline and Wendy. They have no idea what else David has been up to all this time.
David's place. Hello, I need to come and speak to you. Oh, yes, come to you alone. No, she's asleep, is she? Yeah, just get up there for her. There's a few. David, if you listen to what I'm going to say. Yes. We're from Kent Police and we're investigating the murders of Wendy Nell and Caroline Pierce in 1987. As part of that investigation, you've been linked as a suspect, both geographically and forensically. Okay, if you listen to what my colleague's going to say to you.
All right, David, you're under arrest on suspicion of the murders of Wendy Nell and Caroline Pierce in 1987. Do you understand? Yeah. You do not have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you do not mention, when questioned, something which you later on in court. Anything you do say may be given in evidence. You are being arrested to secure and preserve evidence by means of questioning, so we can conduct searches, so forensic samples can be obtained, and to prevent your disappearance. Do you understand?
They take a sample of David's DNA and it matches perfectly to the semen sample found on Caroline's tights, and also matches perfectly to the DNA found on Wendy's pillowcase and a towel inside of her home. Speaking to police, David admits that he does live near the ladies. Like, it's very likely that he could have, taken a stroll through both of their neighborhoods at some point, but he denies ever entering their homes or harming either women.
David, did you murder Wendy Nell?
No.
Did you murder Caroline Pierce? Did you know any of these women?
No.
Now, David, it will come as no surprise to you that there are lots of similarities between these two murders, aren't there? Yeah? Do you agree with that? Do you agree with that? You've heard all the evidence. What's the similarities that you can think of, David?
No comment.
Now, do they believe him? Of course not. So they proceed with a search of his house, expecting to find more evidence linking him to the two women. But instead, they find a nasty stash of home video footage of David desecrating more than 100 women and children over his tenure as an electrician at these two hospitals. They also find a diary that he's been keeping detailing his acts as well. It is now 2020. Since the 80s, David has been consistently doing this to these bodies. He has over 4 million images of himself defiling corpses. And in his handwritten diary entries, he also talks about going to the women's jobs, super snaps, and also frequenting the restaurant that Caroline had worked at. They do go and check the hospital for security footage, but he had been so careful to avoid them that there's literally no footage of him doing any of this in the hospital security archive. The only videos of him doing this are the ones from his own collection. Now, from his personal footage and his diary, this little black book that he kept to write down the name of each of his victims, whether or not he circled back to revisit them, how many times he'd ended up defiling them before the body was permanently gone. Between his home videos and his diary, they are able to identify 80 of the people he's violated, and their ages range from 9 to 100. That's crazy. With everything stacked up against him, and his little crusty back against the wall, he decides to go ahead and confess and tells them that he is not sure how long this has been going on. He doesn't remember when it started or how many of them he had abused. He shows no emotion whatsoever. He's very nonchalant about the whole thing, and also finally admits to killing Wendy and Caroline. But he claims diminished responsibility. David says that he suffered childhood trauma that he could offer no details about. He just said that it wasn't sexual when he was asked. He also says, quote, "I am not insane. I may have some residual personality problems, which, you know, I've gone a completely almost Christian life and a deadliest life altogether at the same time with no crossovers. It's just two different personalities." Child, what are you talking about? Now, those who know David are stunned to hear what he's been up to. His second wife, his first wife, current wife, the children. Everybody is completely shocked. They had all known him as this very quiet, very passive, average, everyday family man, father of 4, who liked to watch birds and ride his bike. His wife said she had no clue. She and his previous wives all said that there was no like sexual deviance, no special request. He never asked them to play dead or anything like that that would have struck them as a red flag. They were completely taken aback. And I imagine very horrified, because child, if you've been sleeping with me and corpses, like I don't know. I imagine them ladies need a little piece of therapy, as I would. His co-workers are also very stunned. They all describe him as very friendly and helpful. Never would they have imagined that he was linked to any of the things. Now, as I said, initially he went in claiming that he was not guilty due to diminished responsibility, i.e. insanity. But 4 days into his trial, he realizes that, y'all, things are looking pretty bad for him. And it's probably in his best interest to go ahead and change that plea. So he does. He switches to a guilty plea, realizing that going to trial simply is not in his best interest. In December of 2021, he is sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. And this is just for the deaths of Wendy and Caroline. For his mortuary madness, he receives an additional 12 years, which I feel like is not enough time. 12 years is a slap on the wrist, but it's not like he's getting out anyway, so I guess. The mother of his youngest victim, the 9-year-old girl, she attends his sentencing and she addresses David directly, expressing her anger and disgust with him. Sadly, she also expresses feeling guilt for leaving her baby there in the crosshairs of this, at the time, 66-year-old pervert. And the judge also has some very harsh words for David, calling him a monster, because he is. After his conviction, investigators continue to identify even more of his victims, pushing the total count into the hundreds. Sadly, his horrific actions result in even more loss of life, because the investigators had to inform all of the families of each of his victims and let them know exactly what had happened. Among those people notified is 20-year-old Jay Carr. His mother, Jordana Carr, was one of David's victims. Sadly, his mother had taken her own life in 2015 when Jay was just 13 years old, and he'd really struggled with his loss for a while, and he'd finally reached a little bit of peace in his adulthood. At the time, he was doing a lot better. In October of 2021, after Jordana is identified, her family is notified out of the blue, and they are told in very graphic detail what had happened to Jordana's body. Now, according to Jay's sister, in the following months, he had become severely depressed. Jay's mental health had deteriorated rapidly. He had become obsessed with David Fuller. He would read about him nonstop. He would talk about him all the time and what he had done to their mother. This had completely set him back on his mental health journey and processing his grief. September 17th of 2022, about a year later, Jay went missing. A search party was put together consisting of family members, friends, police officers, and volunteers. And 3 days later, he is found and he had taken his own life. There's also a mother whose name is spelled like Nike. I'm not sure if it's pronounced that way or Nike or another pronunciation. She had lost her husband and her 2 youngest daughters in a car wreck, and was also among those people who were informed of David's horrific acts. Hearing about the way that her daughters were defiled by David was very emotionally damaging to her as well. And I'm not sure that that was the best thing for law enforcement to do. I can get behind them, of course, notifying the family that it had happened, but the details could have been left out. Like, they had gone through enough losing their loved one, and for them to hear about this so many years on down the line after they processed the grief is just really sad. Like, it had been 7 years for this mother, and she, just like Jay's family, randomly had gotten a call out of the blue, essentially restarting the clock on her grief. It's just very sad and sick, and David is still rotting away in jail with his old self. And that is pretty much it. And I would like to know your thoughts down below. So let me know in the comments. Like the video if you have not. Subscribe if you have not. As always, I appreciate you so much for spending your time with me, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Peace. We not gonna be homeless. Hallelujah. Well, hello, my name is this is a yellow eyeliner. That might be cute though. The deranged David Fuller was born on September 54th. That ain't it. And even develops an interest in photography, girl. And even develops. He is also living in Kent with his second wife, Susan. Her name is Sally. Wendy is not developed. Child. Wendy is discovered 20-year-old Carolyn Pierce works at a restaurant in Kent, Wales. Okay, no, because that's the girl. Oh. Now, the killer had left his DNA on the tights of and what no. Now, this person lives in the area where the client climbs. Girl, that ain't it, baby. On December 3rd, police arrived to 67. Okay, no. On December 3rd, police arrived to the now 67-year-old David Fuller's home. No. Now, they're just here for David and Wendy. David and Wendy, no. Now, do they?